Hello guys and welcome back to another video, and today we have got ourselves our League 1 predictions. You may have already seen my League 2 predictions. If you haven't, check it out up here. I'm going to be doing my League 2 predictions, League 1 predictions, Championship predictions and Premier League predictions as well. So it is very prediction heavy as we move ever closer to the start of the EFL season. And just before we get into the nitty gritty of today's video, comment down below if you want me to go and see your team this season. The football vlogs of course will be back with a bang this season, may I add. So comment below your team, why I should go and see you guys, and who knows, maybe I'll end up at a stadium near you. Of course as well, let me know how you think your team's going to get on this season, or just any of my predictions, what you think about them. I'm sure you're going to slate them. The last one was fairly controversial. And similar to the last one, I'm going to be recording this just a little bit before it comes out, just so I've got enough time to make sure that they're all done. So a lot can change. My predictions may even change themselves before it comes out, but I'm locking them in. The very last thing that I'm going to ask of you guys before we get into the video is if you have any videos from your clubs, whether it's chance, whether it's you with your mates, whether it's goals that you film from the stands, send it into an email down below if you're happy for me to share it, because I want to eventually react to a load of your guys' videos that you send in a video in the future. So enough of me waffling, let's get into the predictions. It is time to dive into some League 1. Starting off in 24th place, rock bottom of the table, and like I said in my League 2 predictions, no one wants to go there. You don't want to put anyone there, but unfortunately it is Shrewsbury who I've got to bottom the table. Yet another season that dawns in with Shrewsbury tipped for relegation again, and I think it is going to take a lot for them to stay up this season. Their top scorer Daniel Odo has left and their recruitment has been okay. Harrison Biggins is a good League 2 player, but can he step up? George Lloyd hasn't really proven himself at this level, and John Marquis looks set to be past his best. So it appears to be quite flat in that regard. Manager Paul Hurst has fond memories from his previous tenure at Shrewsbury, guiding them to the League 1 playoff final in 2018, although he's undergone a fairly difficult managerial record since leaving the Shrews. But will he be able to rekindle the spark between the man and the club? Obviously I don't think so, and unfortunately I just don't think that Shrewsbury have enough to stay up in this division this season, especially when you consider the new talent that's entered this league. I think that may very well have just about bridged the gap for Shrewsbury. Hopefully for you Shrewsbury fans I am wrong, but I just don't see it being your season, I'm afraid. Moving up into 23rd place, and another team that I've got to go down, it is Cambridge United. Last season wasn't a hugely positive one for Cambridge, surviving by just 5 points, and keeping their status as a League 1 club for U's fans is going to be the target once again. As I've already mentioned, the quality in the league this season has risen significantly, so Gary Monk's managerial prowess is really going to be put to the test in a big way this season. And after just 2 wins in his 11 games in charge at the end of last season, it's clear that improvements are needed for this side. Ryan Loft and Shane Lavery aren't signings that inspire much confidence in attack, with just 6 goals in 57 appearances between them, although Corey Smith and Gary Gardner are experienced players who have both played in the Championship, which will bring some stability in that midfield. If I'm being brutally honest, I just don't think it's enough, and it's certainly not enough in my books to keep Cambridge up this season. At this stage of his career, Gary Monk just isn't a man that inspires much confidence for me anymore. I don't think he's going to last the season, and their squad hasn't improved anywhere near enough for me to boost their fortunes for this season, and that is why I think that they are going to go down. 22nd place now, and I have gone with Exeter City as another team to get relegated, and it was a real Jekyll and Hyde performance for them last season. They were top of the table with 5 wins from their first 6 games until injuries severely damaged their season, and by Christmas their fortunes had completely changed as they looked likely to be dragged into an early relegation battle. Last season's January transfer window set them up in better nick than they were at the beginning of the season, and hence they were able to survive fairly comfortably. But I think that the biggest gap in this Exeter team that still hasn't been filled is that centre forward spot. Goals was such a big problem for this team last season, and it's just not a void that's been attempted to have been filled, and it doesn't leave me with much optimism for them heading into the season. I like the system of play that Exeter have when everyone's fit and it's executed well, but how successful that system plays out is often hindered at times by the quality of players on the pitch, and with no real improvements made during the summer, as well as a growing quality in the league, I just can't be confident that Exeter are going to survive. I think it's going to be tight, I think that they're going to fight, but I think that they are just going to face the drop. 21st place now, and a club whose season significantly rides or dies on whether or not this takeover can come into fruition, and come into fruition soon. Of course I'm talking about Reading, and unfortunately for them, things behind closed doors still haven't improved, with the takeover yet to come into fruition, and even if it does by the time that this video is out, it still feels like it is too late to make a real impact on the season coming. Looking past that however, and the hundreds of tennis balls that made their way onto the pitch, Reading actually looked very cohesive at points last season, and when I went to go and see them in December, I was surprised at how well they played on the pitch. Ruben Sayers has been a huge positive for the club, and the fact that he's stuck with Reading through this time is a credit to him and a glimmer of hope for those Reading fans. Unsurprisingly, with Dai Young still in charge of the club, there's been no transfers in for Reading, which is a big problem considering as that first team does need a lot of strengthening, especially when it comes to squad depth. Where I stand with this whole situation, however, is if a change of ownership comes in before January and that new ownership is prepared to spend in January, then I think that Reading will stay up. But if there isn't that takeover that comes into place, then I think that Reading will unfortunately go down, and it will be such a shame for that football club, such a shame for those fans to see their club run so poorly by a man that quite frankly doesn't want to be there. And the optimism in me hopes that they will be fine. I hope that I'm proved wrong, but they are the final team that I've got to be relegated this season. Moving into 20th place, and I have gone for Crawley Town, which is going to surprise a lot of people, especially after the summer that they've had, which has been mental. I have a lot of faith in this Crawley side that they could hopefully stay up. Obviously, they're my local side, so there's going to be a bit of bias going into this, so take this one with a pinch of salt if you must. But after shocking the entire league by making the playoffs last season, further shocking them by making the final, Crawley upset all the odds by securing promotion from League 2, only to go on and sell practically the entire first team that got them there in the first place. On paper, it's ludicrous, but the Crawley owners, of course, are crypto investors, so it kind of lines up with how they made their money in the first place, selling these players when their value is at their highest and trying to buy better players in for a lower price. Now, it is risky, and whether or not it works remains to be seen. For now, however, they've sold key players like Corey Adai, Liam Kelly, and of course Danilo Orsi, the man who scored 25 goals last season before leaving for League 1 rivals Burton. Although they have reinvested and lacking so on the centre forward front, it's of course a risky approach from the Crawley ownership. Only time will tell if they've made the right call, but as long as Scott Lindsay's in charge, they've got the perfect man to drive this team forward, and he could pull off an absolute miracle this season. The optimist for my local side is undying at the moment, and I'm backing them to stay up, and I'm backing that the owners have strategized this summer correctly, and being blunt about it, that is all that Crawley Town fans can hope for this season, is that the owners have done the right job. Will we see them stay up this season? Who knows? That's just one of the many reasons that makes this league so exciting for the new season. 19th place now, and I'm going to go with Northampton, a team that surprised a lot of people by having an impressive season last year when many considered them to be just relegation fodder. Instead, however, they played some very good football at points and they earned themselves a comfortable mid-table finish. Tom Eaves is a good signing, providing that his League 1 form can reappear to the levels between 2017 and 2019 with Gillingham, scoring 38 goals over 2 seasons. It's a big ask though, and his last 4 championship campaigns has seen him score only 16 goals, so it's fairly safe to assume that his best years are behind him. Other than that, their transfer business hasn't exactly set the league on fire, which is understandable considering their transfer budget, although their squad does still largely remain from last season, keeping the majority of their key players. I don't think that this season will be as comfortable for Northampton, but I still think that they will survive. Their lack of transfer recruitment is what is my biggest problem looking at this Northampton squad, and on paper I think all the teams above them are just better. We'll see though, maybe they can upset the odds again and find themselves fighting in and around those mid-table slots. 18th place now, and I think that Leyton Orient are going to be the team to fill this slot. They had a very positive season back in League 1 last year, and they earned themselves a top half finish, but do they have the means at their disposal this season to build on that and kick on? We'll have to see. I don't think that they will, in all honesty, and as I keep on mentioning, the quality of this league has risen so much last season from the teams that have come up as well as down, that I think that to build on what they achieved last season is just going to be too hard. Their manager Richie Wellens is ambitious, as are the ownership, but the players on the pitch are what is most important at the end of the day, and I think that they need to strengthen that first team if they want to come close to achieving a similar league table finish as last season. Their top scorer Ruel Sotorio leaving will be a huge miss for the O's, and whilst the loan signings of Sonny Perkins and Charlie Kelman are promising, they lack game time at this level to know for sure how much of an impact they're going to bring. All in all, I just don't think that Leyton Orient have strengthened anywhere near enough to improve on last season's finish, and I just have a feeling that they're going to start poorly and find themselves in a fight in that lower half of the table. I don't think that they're in any danger really of being relegated, and I certainly hope that they don't either. 17th place now, and one that might shock people, I've gone with Burton. The biggest talking point, of course, is just how significantly Burton have strengthened their first team, signing 16 new players, with the club's takeover from Nordic Football Group showing early signs of promise best for the club's future. Billy Bodin was a key figure in Oxford United's promotion campaign, as was Danilo Orsi for Crawley's League 2 promotion, the latter of which scoring 25 goals for the Reds, and I love that man, and I'm gutted that he has left my local EFL side. But as I always say with these kind of projects, it all comes down to how well it gels, how well the players fit the manager's tactical vision, but the early signs are very promising, and there are plenty of players for the gaffer to choose from and find his starting 11 well within those first 10 games. If it wasn't for the new owners and the investment that they've brought Burton, I would have them nailed on as relegation candidates, but their business has been good and I am expecting a much stronger finish. And there's every chance that with a good run of games, Burton could even outshine my prediction that I've put for them this season, but time will tell and we will just have to wait and see. But one thing is for sure, it is an exciting time to be a Burton fan right now. Onwards and upwards in League 1, and in 16th place I've gone for Mansfield, a side that had a fantastic campaign last year, finishing 3rd in League 2, and after 8 seasons of trying to reclaim their place in League 1, they have finally done so under Nigel Clough. They've signed 35-year-old Lee Gregory as a striker, who's a good experienced head to have in their ranks, but what's been most impressive for me about their transfer window is just how many of their key players they've managed to hold on to. The likes of Davis, Kelly or Dunn, who had 32 goal involvements last season, Lewis Reed and Aidan Flynn, all of which made the League 2 team of the season. On one hand, you could argue that Mansfield haven't strengthened enough to significantly boost their chances, but in my opinion, you're looking at a squad that is capable and confident enough to stay up in this division this season and have a really good one at that. They could kick on and push higher, they could finish about 2 or 3 places below. It's really tricky to know where Mansfield are going to settle this season, but I think it's going to be here or hereabouts, and I think it's going to be a good stable season for the club. 15th place now, and another team that got promoted last season, I have gone with Stockport County. In 2019, Stockport were promoted from the National League North to the National League, and since then they've been promoted a further 2 times to eventually make it back to League 1 for the first time in 15 years. It's been an incredible rise for the club, who have benefited from a wonderful ownership that have invested heavily into the first team, and an investment that has continued into the summer transfer window with 12 new signings in so far, including the likes of Lewis Bate, Corey Adai from Crawley Town and Lewis Fiorni from Manchester City under 21s. There has also been a lot of sacrifice, with 13 players that have left the club so far in a major reshuffle at the club that I think will see them finish strongly. Dave Challoner is the mastermind behind Stockport's rise from the National League to where they are now, and they've shown little signs of slowing down. But I think that this season they're going to have to settle for a very stable mid-table position and look to continue building for a hopeful stronger finish next season. Really getting stuck into that mid-table position now, and in 14th place I am going to go for Bristol Rovers. This is going to be Matt Taylor's first full season in charge of the club, with the task of bringing Rovers their first League 1 top half finish since 2017. We saw glimpses of what Taylor can do with this team, winning 3 out of his first 5 games in charge, but that eventually fizzled out, leaving Rovers with a disappointing 15th place finish. However, now he has a full season in charge, he's had a strong transfer window and an entire league campaign to truly make his mark with this squad. The backing that he's had in the transfer window reflected by Isaac Hutchinson and Promise Omachair, both costing just shy of £900,000 and just 2 of 11 youthful signings. There is a good feel around the club, which is exactly what you want at the beginning of the season, although I do think that it's going to take another season of investment for Bristol Rovers to really kick on a bit and start looking to break into the top half of the table and eventually start pushing for playoffs. I think that they look a little bit undercooked at the moment for that eventuality, but they're certainly heading in the right direction. 13th place now, and I'm backing Stevenage to take this spot. It's been an era of change at Stevenage, with Steve Evans leaving the borough for Rotherham and seeing new boss Alex Revell at the helm, a man who managed them once before in his only managerial role in 2020 and 2021, and it's safe to say that that wasn't a positive experience for him, nor was it a positive experience for Stevenage. He was still involved with the club at youth level before being appointed as the head coach in April this year, but there is no question that Steve Evans is going to be missed this season, and Alex Revell has got a lot of living up to do this season. Jamie Reid scored 18 goals last season and is one of many who are still at Stevenage and part of the side that finished 9th place last season, and it's for that reason that Stevenage can't completely be written off based off of a managerial change alone. That being said, I do still think that this is going to have a massive impact on Stevenage, and they are going to struggle throughout this transitional phase, and with more competition around them in this mid-table spot, I think a drop in position is only natural to expect for Stevenage fans. 12th place and slap bang in the middle of this League 1 table, I have gone with Wycombe. Wycombe's rise throughout the football leagues in the last few seasons has really seen them establish established themselves as a team that deserve their seat at the table in recent years. Owned by a Kazakhstan billionaire giving them one of the biggest budgets in the league, their spending has been strangely limited so far, making use of mainly free transfers. That approach of course is sensible, but it doesn't really make them massive contenders based on the players that they've brought in. Perhaps the owners are just biding their time and trying to find the right deal, or maybe there's been some problems with trying to find the right targets. Either way, looking at what's in front of me right now, I think that Wycombe will have a fine season, but I don't really think that they're going to kick on. It's not going to be groundbreaking, and I think it's just going to be another season of a stable mid-table finish. Getting in some top half antics now, and in 11th place, I'm going to go with Lincoln. Lincoln's managerial change last season took some time to really take effect after Mark Kennedy was sacked with the side in 16th place. However, once Michael Scabala got his side winning, they were a force to be reckoned with and surged up the table, only missing out on the playoffs by 2 points. How much of that was down to the quality of the squad and how much of that was down to the new manager bounce is completely up to you at the end of the day, but I think it leans slightly towards the latter. But whatever your stance is on that, the one thing that cannot be denied is that Lincoln had a fantastic season last year, and it makes them really difficult to predict this season. As expected, with a club of Lincoln's size, keeping hold of key players is always going to be a task, and that's reflected with the departures of Lucas Jensen as well as Lasse Sorensen, who are both set to be huge losses. On the other hand, however, they have managed to keep some players such as Ethan Erahon, and they have brought in a lot of new signings. But they've got funds to reinvest now, so if they do that this season and in the seasons coming, I think that Lincoln have got a really nice little project coming along here. I just don't think that we're going to see them hit the same heights so soon. Moving up into 10th place, and next up on the list we have got Blackpool. Blackpool had a great campaign last season, just missing out on the playoffs with only 3 points in it, and it was a real season of progress under Neil Critchley, despite mixing in some frustration at inconsistencies in their results last season. And that is one of their biggest problems that they need to fix for this season, as well as the loss of their star player Karamoko Dembele at the end of his loan. Blackpool yet to find a replacement, and whoever that may be has big boots to fill following the youngsters' tally of 8 goals and 13 assists last season. Consistency is going to be key for Blackpool in trying to push for the playoffs this season, but I don't think that they are quite ready, and I don't think that they've invested enough to strengthen what they've lost, so I think it is going to be a slight drop off for Blackpool, but the foundations to progress are there, and that is a massive positive for the club. 9th place, and staying in the north of England, I have gone for Wigan Athletic. Following an 8-point deduction last season, Wigan managed to finish in a comfortable mid-table position, but now with no transfer embargo, no points deduction, it's going to be interesting to see if they can kick on. Calvin Ramsey is an exciting loan signing to start this new season off, alongside Tyrese Francois and plenty more signings that are likely to come. Sean Maloney's targets will be set on pushing for promotion back to the Championship, and I think that they will put up a good fight. It will be a step in the right direction, but they just aren't quite there in my books yet to squeeze into those playoff spots just yet. We are in touching distance of those playoff spots now, and in 8th place I am going with Charlton. Charlton have been absolutely shafted over the last decade with false promises from owners, and they are a club that are so much more deserving of just League One football. Alfie May will be an incredible miss for them this season, strengthening fellow League One rivals Birmingham City, and George Dobson and Corey Blackett-Taylor are also going to be big misses for the Addicts. However, I think that their transfer dealings so far have been enough to steer them away from any real danger. Nathan Jones is a breath of fresh air in the dugout as well, the man who played a pivotal role in Luton's rise throughout the leagues, as well as a short and disappointing stint at Southampton in the Premier League. Regardless, he's a great appointment for Charlton, who will help keep them stable in the short term, whilst also aiding them in hopefully rebuilding for a more positive future. As is the case for Charlton fans anyway, I'm cautiously optimistic for them this season, and I didn't want to put them any higher, as to me it feels like too much of a gamble. I do think that they could make a push for the playoffs, but for now I think it's safer to leave them where they are, and regardless, I think that Charlton will find themselves very comfortably in the top half of the League One table. 7th place now, and just missing out on playoffs, I am going to go with Wrexham. Now, in every League One prediction table, the one team that everyone's going to be looking out for is where do they put Wrexham, and that is $1 million question. They are so hard to know where they're going to sort of level out at. They cruise through the National League, they cruise through League 2, but I'm sure that League 1 won't be as much of a breeze for them. 3 back-to-back promotions from the National League all the way up to the Championship has never been done before, so as things stand, Wrexham could potentially be the first team in history to ever achieve that feat, but I think that would be asking a little too much too soon for them. I think that consolidation, finishing the construction of that stand, and making plans for how they enter the Championship will be a much more sensible approach, and if they make the playoffs, then that would of course be a bonus. But I don't think that they will, and I think a place just outside the playoffs will be a fantastic achievement for this club's meteoric rise in what is a far more competitive league for the Red Dragons. Crunch time now at the top of the table, and starting off this playoff journey in my League One predictions, I'm starting off with Barnsley. Barnsley have a real point to prove this season after reaching the playoffs again last season for the second time in the row, and they very nearly made it back-to-back playoff finals if it wasn't for Bolton hanging on in their second leg clash. But as a new season dawns, former Cheltenham manager Darrell Clarke is now at the helm, and with Barnsley lacking real fight at points in the second half of last season, Clarke's side may have been relegated, but they didn't give up without a fight. I'm not really blown away by their transfer dealings so far, and of course there's still time for that to change, but the core of last season's playoff squad is still there, so I think that they will just about scrape this position. But if I'm being completely honest with you guys, I think that this spot is anyone's for the taking. Fifth place now, in a club that I somewhat fell in love with in my 2 visits to them last season, and that of course is Peterborough United. Peterborough were extremely unlucky in the manner of which they fell short during their playoff semi-final against Oxford, so this season their mindset will be firmly set on trying to avenge that playoff defeat. With Ronnie Edwards leaving for Southampton, the silver lining is that they now have £3 million to reinvest into the squad, and with the departure of Ephron Mason-Clark, that quality on the wing is a gap that needs filling. Despite 2 wingers being signed, it's Altringham's Chris Con-Clark who appears to be the star signing, after scoring 22 goals from attacking midfield for the non-league side last season. With well-scouted signings like himself being added to the first team, I still think that there's a lot of improvements to be made for Peterborough in nailing on those playoff spots, but I still think that they're going to qualify and continue their push to escape League One and hopefully make it back up to the Championship. And for you Borough fans, I really hope that that comes into fruition. In 4th place and taking up another one of these playoff spots, I have gone with Rotherham. Last season they were obviously relegated after putting up such a little fight and practically losing every week, capping off the season with a very unsurprising bottom place finish for the Millers. This season however, they've gone for a complete reshuffle, bringing in a lot more experience, including their former boss Steve Evans. On top of that, they've made 10 permanent signings with an average age of 29 years old, most of which are former Championship players. 17 players have already left the club in what is very clearly a massive reshuffling job going on at Rotherham this summer, and the signing of Johnson Clark-Harris, despite only bagging 9 goals last season compared to his previous 25 plus goal campaigns in the 2 seasons prior, displays a real intent to bounce right back. Whilst all of this sounds warm and wonderful on paper, this rebuild is going to take time, and just because the club have yo-yoed between Championship and League One so regularly in the last few seasons doesn't mean that they are guaranteed or entitled to do the same this season. Playoffs at best is my prediction for Rotherham this season, and to be honest, if they do end up going straight back up, I think that they're only going to come straight back down because they are not building their squad in a correct way to sustain themselves in the Championship, and it shows. They need to take their time and they need to get this one right. 3rd place and just missing out on an automatic spot, I have gone with Huddersfield, and I fell in love with the Huddersfield fans when I joined up with them at the end of last season to watch Ipswich secure their promotion to the Premier League, and purely based on that alone, I'd love to see them do well, but I just can't squeeze them into those top 2 spaces. And as last season showed, there is a lot of work that needs to go into this first team if they want to reaffirm their status as a Championship club. Michael Duff is their man to lead this rebuild, and I think he's a great man for the job. He had a brilliant impact at Cheltenham Town and Barnsley, and has proven his effectiveness at implementing a positive style of football and getting clubs back on their feet, which is ticking all the boxes for Huddersfield fans right now. So far they've made a pretty decent start to rebuilding their first team, but of course the departure of Jack Rodoni will be a big loss. However, the £5 million funds is extremely useful at this level, and if it's reinvested right, then this will significantly aid their bid to return to the Championship. Anthony Evans, whilst weakening Bristol Rovers, is a good player to have at this level, and Lasse Sorensen should thrive in a team like this. But Herbie Kane from Barnsley is a great direct replacement for Rodoni for this league, which will help the Bulldogs in the short term. There's still work to be done of course, and this transitional phase is going to take time. However, I think that playoffs is more than doable for Huddersfield, and they could very well see themselves back in the Championship at the first time of asking. But similar to Rotherham, I do think that they would benefit with another season in this division just to make sure that they get this right. 2nd place now, and kicking off the automatic promotion spot, I have gone with Bolton Wanderers. With a fan base that's been labelled arrogant of late following the extreme confidence displayed in saying that Bolton are too good to be playing in League One, I think it's safe to say that a lot of people were very happy to see see Oxford beat them in the playoff final last season. This season, however, I do think that Bolton will go one step further and they will achieve the promotion that they are so desperate for back into the Championship. The transfer business has been really strong and they've tightened up on areas where they were looking a little bit thin, and ultimately this looks like a squad that are primed and ready to return to the Championship in that promotion that they've been searching for so many years. Top scorer Dion Charles will be the focal point to stop again this season, and with the strengthening undergone by Ian Evatt, Bolton will be near impossible to stop this season, and I think that automatics are a guarantee for them. And that brings us into first place now, and if you haven't worked it out already, take a long hard look at yourself because most people will probably have them in this position already. I'm going with the Brummy boys to make it back to the Championship at the first time of asking, and to be honest, I was surprised to even see them struggle as much as they did. They obviously struggled under Wayne Rooney and the change of manager wasn't enough to keep them from facing the drop, but Chris Davis is the man tasked with taking Birmingham back to the Championship, and after breaking the League One transfer record with a €4 million deal for William Thor Williamson, it's safe to say that they've got the budget to do exactly that. Alfie May was last season's league top scorer, signed from Charlton with 23 goals under his belt, and an out-and-out proven goal scorer that is a cherry on the top of Birmingham's luxury League One squad, and they should without any shadow of a doubt win this League One title this season, and if they don't, it will be a massive shock. But ladies and gentlemen, that does bring us to the end of the video. Comment down below what you think of my predictions. Comment down below your own, even if it's just about your team or your full league table. I'm still going to read them. Only a handful of days away now until the season starts, and I cannot wait. I will see you guys in a few days time for my Championship predictions, but like I said at the beginning of the video, if you haven't watched my League One predictions, they're up here or here. I can't remember which side they come up, but again, I'm pretty sure it's this one. Thank you so much for watching as always, ladies and gentlemen. See you very soon. Take care as always. Peace and love.